Greater Creators is a study of creative icons who push the boundaries of art and whose influence can still be felt today. So take a seat, class is in session. Today we're talking about my own personal spirit animal, the alchemical Alejandro Jodorowsky. Hey guys, what's up? I'm Comic Book Girl 19 and welcome to Greater Creators. He's a filmmaker, actor, author, comic book creator, poet, musician, philosopher, tarotologist, as well as a spiritual master and visionary. Personally, I consider Jodorowsky to be like my cosmic grandfather.
Cosmic grandfather?
Yes. I discovered him first through one of his mini comics, The Techno Priests, which led me to his movies, which led me to his books on mysticism, which led me to the tarot deck that he helped to revive for the 21st century. This guy's work is a veritable rabbit hole of radness that speaks to my very soul.
This episode is weird.
It sure is. Embrace the weirdness. Vice describes his films as a 35mm equivalent to an acid trip.
I've never done acid. I don't know what that means.
Nor should you, robot. You're just a robot. But what they're trying to say is that his films make you feel like you're occupying another plane of reality when you're watching them. The thing that strikes me the most about his work is how it sticks with me long after the show's over. I dare you to watch Santa Sangre and not be haunted by the elephant scene for days, even weeks.
What's the elephant scene?
Here, robot, check it out.
Oh my gosh!
What happened?
Why did you show me this?
He made many of his masterpieces in Mexico, including his two most famous movies, El Topo and The Holy Mountain.
El Topo is more than spectacle. It is an experience for all of your life.
El Topo is a super violent Western with an Eastern mystic center experienced within the atmosphere of European surrealism, and it is the first definitive midnight movie.
What's a midnight movie?
Ooh, I know. Midnight movies are cult films played late at night in theaters, like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which has been a human tradition for decades.
Shut up, Brain. Nobody asked you.
That's right. Jodorowsky is such a badass that his weirdo movie created a new way for cinephiles to interact with counterculture movies. Dennis Hopper, Peter Gabriel, and Bob Dylan were among some of the famous fans who attended the once-per-night screenings at the Elgin Cinema in Chelsea. And John Lennon and Yoko Ono were such a fan of El Topo that they helped get it wider distribution, with late Beatles manager Alan Klein coming aboard and putting up $1 million for the making of The Holy Mountain. Unfortunately, after a bitter falling out, Klein punished Jodorowsky by keeping his movies from being seen. The two eventually reconciled before Klein's death in 2009, but Jodorowsky's career is filled with bad distribution deals, disappearing financing, and hard-to-find prints. As Nicholas Winding Refn, who made the very Jodorowsky-influenced modern classic Drive, once told the New York Times, El Topo and Holy Mountain were just legends and myths you could read about Jodorowsky through a few books and magazines, but his films were basically inaccessible. But all this has changed in more recent years, with El Topo, The Holy Mountain, and Santa Sangre all currently available on Blu-ray. Besides his surrealist movies that will make you uncomfortable, Alejandro is also responsible for the Yodoverse, an entire comics universe which began after the failure of Dune, channeling his would-be ideas for the film into the graphic novel The Inkle with the help of fellow Greater creator, Mobius.
And then I will use everything I put in Dune to make comics. I say to Mobius, why we don't do a comic? And I start to dictate in Cal.
Afterwards came the Techno Priests, and then later my personal favorite, the Metabarons.
All the spaceship I designed for Dune are in the Metabarons.
Unlike his surrealist movies, his comics feature more traditional narratives. The Metabarons is a prequel series about the familial origins of the nameless Metabaron featured in The Inkle. This grand-scale sci-fi space opera chronicles the 5 generations of a dynasty of perfect mercenary warriors that demands its practitioners dedicate themselves to victory in all things at any cost. Each up-and-coming Metabaron must withstand a mutilation administered by their own father when they're children to test their endurance to pain. And once they pass this test, they're given a new cybernetic replacement for the destroyed limb. Once they're ready, they must face their father in mortal combat. They have to kill their own father in order to achieve the title of the next Metabaron, and not before. Once they become a Metabaron, They inherit an array of advanced weaponry from spaceships, bunkers, and implanted nanotech nuclear bombs in their own flesh, and they even exhibit psychic powers. The story begins with the first Metabaron, Othon von Salza, a eunuch who begets a son from a beautiful witch when a drop of his blood is placed in her vagina. Then there's Agar, Othon's son, who is made weightless through an accident at the time of his birth. Agar begets a son on his love Oda, who is secretly possessed by his own mother's consciousness. Disgusted at his incest, Agar attempts to murder his son, blowing the infant's head off with a psychic blast. Oda replaces the missing head with a mechanical one, and he is named Steelhead. Later, he decides he wants his own head, and decides to unite with the disembodied head of the last poet in the galaxy to become Malmuth, who then begets twins, placing the male twin's brain in the female twin's empty skull and naming the child Agora. Later, Agora takes his own brain tissue and impregnates herself, giving birth to the last and final Metabaron, who's featured in the Inkle.
Yeah, sure. That old story.
The Metabarons is heavily inspired by Dune, far more than the Inkle, and is one of my favorite tales from the Yodaverse. His ill-fated proposed 14-hour adaptation of another greater creator, Frank Herbert's Dune, has been called the most influential movie never made. It would have starred Mick Jagger, Orson Welles, and Salvador Dali with a creative team that included Mobius and H.R. Giger. This is all chronicled in the awesome documentary Jodorowsky's Dune, whose director credits the failed production with influencing everything from Alien and Blade Runner to Star Wars and Terminator.
14 hours?
Yeah, it's pretty long.
How long you want to do it? I don't want limit of time. If it's 20 hours, will be 20 hours.
But you know what? If I had the chance, I would go to the alternate universe timeline where that movie got made, and I would sit down and watch that bitch for 14 hours. You better believe it. His more mystical endeavors include developing his own therapeutic technique called psychomagic that relies upon the belief that the unconscious mind takes a symbolic act as a fact, so said symbolic act could help a person heal non-rational emotional conflicts.
I don't get it.
Okay, Robot, I know it's a lot to take in, but let me just give you an example real quick. So get this. There was this judge who came to Jodorowsky and was like, my vanity is ruling my life. So Jodorowsky had him dress like a hobo and beg outside of one of his favoriteest, expensivest restaurants in town that all his friends went to while pulling glass doll's eyes out of his pockets. The lesson being that if a homeless man can fill his pockets with eyeballs, they must be of no value, thus the eyes of others should have no bearing on who you are or what you do.
I still don't get it.
She's saying that the act of doing a ritual is significant, not because the ritual itself has some kind of magic power, but because the act of doing something with the intention of a goal jolts the subconscious mind into manifesting that goal.
It's very good, brain. Ow! And from reports, psychomagic works. Other greater creator Mobius asked Jodorowsky to give him a psychomagic act so he could stop smoking. And according to him, whatever he did, he never smoked again. So, you know, he's got results, all right? Fun fact, Jodorowsky has a 3-mile-wide asteroid that's been named after him that orbits between Mars and Jupiter. So now, let's take a moment to talk about the themes within Jodorowsky's work. We're going to be talking about alchemy, the language of symbols, and the great work cycle.
Uh-oh, this sounds complicated.
It is! So, Alejandro Jodorowsky isn't just an artist, he's more than that. I consider him to be an alchemist. I mean, he literally casts himself in the character of the alchemist in Holy Mountain. I'm pretty sure he agrees with me on this one.
Well, what's an alchemist?
Well, Robot, what do I mean when I say alchemist? To most people, the idea of alchemy conjures the images of a foolish charlatan man trying to turn lead into gold. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about spiritual alchemy.
Oh, wow!
Spiritual alchemy is the pursuit of what is called the great work, which entails purifying, maturing, and perfecting one's soul, a personal transformation, a rebirth, attaining self-actualization and awareness of divinity in oneself and everything else.
Hallelujah! Oh, God.
God is right. A+, Robot.
I want to create a prophet to change the young mind of all the world.
As Jodorowsky himself once said, What is the goal of life? It is to create yourself a soul. So as an alchemist, Jodorowsky is creating art in an attempt to ignite a spiritual awakening in his viewers.
I don't have a soul. I'm just a robot.
Don't sell yourself short, robot. It's totally possible you could have a soul. We just don't know for sure yet.
Oh, please keep telling me about the spiritual awakening.
All right, Space Brain, calm down. So what tools does he use for this job of trying to ignite the spiritual awakening? He uses symbols, all right?
Symbols?
Symbols. This guy has spent a lifetime learning how to recognize, read, and utilize symbols. He is a master symbologist, and he uses them throughout his work to speak directly to the viewer's subconscious.
Ooh, I love the language of symbols.
The language of symbols. Because here's the deal. Alejandro Jodorowsky does not care about your conscious mind, okay? He's not trying to make this nice logical story for your brain, all right? This guy is literally trying to break your logical brain into submission by blasting you with waves of shocking imagery and sounds that cause a perception overload. And in that crisis, while you're like, what the is happening to me, Jodorowsky has invaded the fertile soul in the depths of your psyche and is planting all the seeds he can fit in there. I'm not kidding. Watch his movies and see if you don't feel weird for a few days or even weeks afterwards.
I feel weird right now.
His will really shake you up, man. And you don't need to take drugs either. El Topo, Holy Mountain, and Santa Sangre are drugs. They are drugs.
This is the most talk about drugs in one class I've ever seen.
I mean, drugs are part of life. We're just learning about life here. We're learning about art, okay? Drugs are part of those things. And as the man himself has stated, what I'm trying to do when I use symbols is to awaken in your unconscious a reaction. I'm very conscious of what I'm doing because symbols can be very dangerous. When we use normal language, we can defend ourselves because our society is a linguistic society, a semantic society. But when you start to speak not with words, but only with images, the people cannot defend themselves. Alejandro is also a tarotologist and worked for a decade with a descendant of the Camois family to restore the Tarot de Marseille, one of the oldest tarot decks around, as faithfully as possible, and even wrote a mind-blowing book to go along with it. Fun fact, the Marseille Tarot has become my own personal go-to tarot deck.
Tarot cards are for the devil.
No, they're not.
I heard that somewhere, and I believe it.
You're being disruptive, is what you're being, and you need to stop before you get to go to the Space Principal's office. Today, at 87 years young, Jodorowsky holds classes and lectures and reads tarot for free in cafes and universities all over Paris in an effort to do what he's always done throughout his entire life, throughout all of his works, to help people become more conscious and more aware. And that's the thing that makes Jodorowsky so unique, is the fact that he's not just an artist. He's an alchemist in disguise.
And a devil worshiper.
No. 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 Okay, class, it's time for your homework assignments. Be sure to start off with the greatest midnight movie ever, El Topo, followed by the massively important masterpiece, The Holy Mountain. But be warned, these movies will make you feel really weird. Next, dig into his comic series with The Inkle, which has been illustrated by fellow greater creator Mobius. And then, if you're a fan of Dune, I highly recommend his comic The Metabarons. And don't forget to watch Jodorowsky's Dune, a fascinating documentary taking a look at the greatest movie never made, including interviews with the man himself. And for extra credit, take a deep dive into the Marseille Tarot with the book Way of the Tarot, the spiritual teacher
I
and
can't
the
keep
cards.
up with all this.
This isn't even all my Jodorowsky stuff, okay? I left like 2/3 of it at home.
Okay, what else do you got?
That's it.
Oh, that's it? Okay.
That's it for today. That's all.
Can we leave now? Yay!
Join us next time on Greater Creators, where we're going to discuss the works of other amazing creators who influenced generations. Class dismissed.